Today I want to talk about the protein absorption myth and how much protein we can absorb. So stay tuned. The protein absorption myth is something, I guess, if you're training on a regular basis, that you stumbled over at some point or another. And a while ago, I saw this post on Reddit where someone was actually asking the same question, and it happens over and over again. So I gave this Redditor my reply and figured I share it here too with you guys. So here was the question: 25 grams of protein per meal. Hey Redditors, I'm sure all of us heard the phrase you should eat a max 25 grams of protein in a meal. Some say it won't absorb well and turn into fat, some say it causes bloating, etc. So my question is basically, is it a myth? What if I need 200 grams of protein in a day? Am I supposed to divide my protein intake to 8 different mini meals, protein shakes? I would love if someone could explain or counter this limitation and the science behind it on a biological level. So that's the question, or it's more than one question, and I tackled it, gave DXVI 666 my reply as good as I can, and here is the gist of it. The myth. So there is the 25 grams of protein, which might sound like a lot of protein to many, but in fact it isn't. And the whole concept of these 25 grams of protein derives from the way of optimal protein muscle synthesis, also shortened to MPS. And with 25 grams of protein, you get this muscle synthesis, which is a trigger for your body to know that, okay, you can now rebuild muscle. 40 grams would be actually better, as there is more of the amino acid leucine in it, and this will give you even a better MPS. We will come to this calculation later on, and I will make clear where this 25 grams comes from, and why more to a certain extent would be actually better. The amount of protein that optimizes your MPS is also where this as I said, as this idea of absorption comes from in the first place. It's really not about how much your body can digest. That's not the same as absorb. It's about how much it can make use in terms of building protein, and meaning that you have a net benefit of building muscle and net benefit of muscle protein synthesis. So here is a simplified, let's say, protein science thoughts about this. And I'm not nutritional scientist, so this is really as far as I can make sense of this. But here's my take. So while the protein absorption is really one thing, the science is something that's completely different and goes a little bit like this. If you eat a certain amount of protein, it will switch a trigger in your body that will start muscle protein synthesis. Meaning, once this trigger gets flipped, your body will try to make a new muscle tissue, and to simplify the whole complex structure. And if you dig a bit in the research, you will see that the studies seem to suggest that something like 25 grams of protein could already start or flip this trigger. But if you dig a little deeper, you will see that 40 grams of protein, high quality protein, will definitely flip this trigger. If I say high quality protein, what I actually mean is protein that is rich in leucine, but also rich in all EAAs. That's in most cases protein. This is usually protein sources that come from animals, so it's non-vegan protein. They have all the EAAs we need to build muscle, and also are rich in the amino acid leucine. In terms of this MPS trigger or switch, it really depends it really depends on each individual how much protein you need to flip it. When you get older, you seem to get a little bit more protein resistant, so there is this kind of protein resistance in elderly people, which means they need to eat actually more protein to flip the switch and keep muscle or even build muscle. So the scientists figured out that the leucine threshold, that's how they call this basically baseline that we need to reach in our blood concentration to flip the switch, should be around 2 to 2.5 grams of leucine. But it seems way more optimal if we bump this up to 3 grams of leucine. So now it gets a bit more interesting, and we come closer to the 25 grams. Your typical whey protein contains around 8 to 10% of leucine. So if you do the math and take a scoop of whey, which is usually 30 grams of whey, that will turn out to be roughly 25 grams of protein. Now, in these 25 grams of protein, we have this 8 to 10% of leucine, which turns out to be 2 to 2.5 grams. So this seems to be the minimum threshold of leucine which we need to pull the switch or pull the trigger. So one serving of 25 grams of protein should pull this MPS trigger, and that's the miss. That's where this 25 grams come from. That's why you will read we cannot absorb more than 25 grams of protein per sitting, and it's just this minimal threshold which we seem to need to pull the muscle protein synthesis switch and tell our bodies to please build muscle. So if you have 40 grams of whey, you get around 32 grams of protein, which will result more or less in 2.6 to 3.3 grams of leucine, which brings us much closer to the 3 grams leucine range, where we definitely should see optimal results in terms of MPS. So in other words, you can have more protein and the spike in MPS gets a little higher, but it will go down quite fast, so it will flatten more or less, and you will not really see more benefit in terms of better muscle protein synthesis. But there's no problem for your body to digest more or absorb more protein than 25 grams. Otherwise, you would really struggle with just eating a big steak or a big chicken breast or whatever, because there is more than 25 grams of protein in it. And you probably gave this a try and had it and you didn't really suffer from it. So it's not a big deal for our body to handle it. But this is the not more than 25 grams of protein myth. It's really quite simple. It's really the flattening of the curve. Once you get up here, you go up here with the 25 grams and you get a little higher, but it just flattens out, and that's maybe the most cost efficient way to trigger MPS. Something I want to emphasize on is that while leucine seems to be extremely important for triggering this nutrition-based muscle protein synthesis, it's really not enough. You can just pull the trigger, but if you're not giving your body enough resources or enough reason to build muscle, you're not going to build any muscle. Let's put it in a different way. Let's say maybe that's easier to understand. It's like a signal, and you can just add more power to the signal, but at one point you're just not getting higher bumps in terms of reaction, and there's just no use to add to double it because you're not getting any higher. That's maybe helping. In an intuitive way, this really makes sense to me. I thought about it in this way. Let's say that you're telling your body, hey, build muscle, and you basically at the beginning you're just like whispering to your body, hey, build muscle. Then you're raising your voice a little more and a little more, and at one point you're starting to scream to your body, hey, build muscle, but you will max out in your potential to scream, and that's how I kind of intuitively try to relate to this idea that it's just flattening out, and you can try to scream harder, but you're not going to be able to. And your body at one point heard you scream and knows, okay, hey, I got the message, chill, and I take it from here. So yeah, that's really not scientific at all. That's just how I would try to make sense of it. It seems to make sense intuitively, but that's not science. That's just how I try to visualize this. So take this for what it's worth. Something that's really important is that you don't confuse triggering muscle protein synthesis with actually having enough essential amino acids to build any muscle. And you really need all of them to have all the building blocks to build new lean body tissue. Otherwise, you could just drop 3-4 grams of leucine pills every couple hours, and everything would be fine. You would just grow bigger, and that's it. But that's not how it works. It's you need give your body enough calories overall. You need to give your body all the essential amino acids, and of course you need to resistance train properly to give your body any reason to get any stronger. So yeah, it's like building a house. You can have someone there who is telling everybody to work, but if you don't have any concrete and no wood and no workers, you're not going to build a house. It doesn't matter if there's someone screaming around, build a house, build a house, build a house. So yeah, that's another way to look at it in the bigger picture. Now another part of the question the Redditor had is how much do I need? How do I spread it? And that's a little bit a different topic, but it coincides really also with optimizing muscle protein synthesis. First of all, it's important to know that this really depends on an individual basis. So it's what works for me and what is okay or optimal for me is not going to be the same for anyone else. So that means you have to figure this out on your own, but there are guidelines, let's put it like this, or places where you can start off, and your body weight is one of those good starting points. And in my case, if a good way to go is take your body weight in kilos and double this number, and that's roughly the amount of protein that puts you in the optimal range. So while I'm recording this, I weigh around 85 kilos. So 2 times 85 kilos is around 170 grams of protein. So that's what makes sense for me to have to optimize muscle protein synthesis and to spread this over a day. I personally tend to eat a little more than this, usually somewhere around 185 to 200 grams of protein, and I spread this throughout 5-6 meals, of which one meal is not really that high in protein, which is usually my pre-workout meal. It's a little higher in carbs. So this is one way of doing it. And now you hear 200 grams of protein, sounds like a terrifying amount, but it's nothing you have to worry about. There's also this next myth that, you know, having too much protein is going to kill you, but that's not the case. There are plenty of studies that show that it's not bad for your kidneys, it's not bad for your liver. Your body can handle all of it, even if you go up to 3 grams per kilo body weight. Nothing bad should happen. The only asterisk to this is for people who have any pre-existing health conditions, and these people tend to know that they have to eat low protein diets because they are working with the doctor with the problems they have, because they have actual kidney problems or liver problems. So chances are, if you know this, you know that you cannot eat much protein. If you are an everyday person, there shouldn't be any problem with this if you look into recent studies. Another thing why people get a little scared is when they see the amount of protein one might need in order to optimize muscle protein synthesis, is that it's a lot higher than RDAs. Here again, there's a big difference between RDA and optimal intake for health, because the RDA gives you an amount based on how much protein you need to not get sick or not suffer from an illness, and that's definitely not the same than thriving and living optimally in terms of health. So those two values are on usually on two extremes. You have on one side you have your RDA, which is quite low. That's the amount you really need to just not get ill, which is not that much. And then on the other side you have of the range you have the optimal amount, which is a lot higher, which then allows you to feel a lot better, most likely. So yeah, in terms of MPS, make sure to spread your proteins over several meals throughout the day, because this trigger you gets flipped, and after a couple of hours, 2.5 to 3 hours, kind of gets reset, and you can switch it again and tell your body again, hey, please build muscle. So in an optimal way, you would have enough protein consumption every 2.5 to 3 hours. You just have to figure out how this works for you, how many meals you can eat, won't eat, how you can make this fit your lifestyle. Just keep this in mind. Maybe you can do it every 4 hours, have a protein-rich meal. So yeah, keep that in mind. And this is only to optimize a muscle protein synthesis. This is nothing bad happens if you don't eat. Again, optimal and bad is not the same thing. So keep that in mind. And to finish this off, I want to quickly touch the topic of digestion, which is also a little bit part of the question. This is a little trickier, and it's a lot less black and white. Instead, it's really more of a grayscale. So if you have digestive issues from your nutrition, you are actually not absorbing it properly or not at all. So this is a problem. This is something you need to look at. In an ideal world, you should not have any issues with your food whatsoever. No gas, no bloating, no diarrhea, and none of these symptoms, really none. No gas, bloating, diarrhea, none of these symptoms are normal. So if this happens, especially on a regular basis, there's something off with your diet, and you need to figure out what's happening, because your body is kind of rebelling against the things you are putting into it. So a common source people tend to have problems with is whey protein. That's why this probably was part of the question, and it's quite simple. If you can't handle whey protein that well, you could try a different brand, for instance, and see if that changes anything. If not, you don't have to use whey protein, you just don't have to eat it. There are plenty of alternatives, mainly from animal food, like you can eat more meat, more eggs, you can have dairy products if you can tolerate them, and that's fine. You don't need to buy protein powder in order to build muscle. It's quite the contrary. In a very good diet, you should be able to limit your amount of protein powder. It might be very convenient, and that's completely fine, but you don't need any extra powders in order to build muscle. You could also have digestive issues because of the vegetables you eat, the carb sources you might eat, and really check if this might be the source of or potential bloating. Maybe it could also be impacted by your lifestyle. Your lifestyle and your digestion, there is a correlation. Let's say you constantly eat on the go most of the time. Maybe then you need to figure out a way to take a little more time to sit down and give your body the chance to eat properly and to digest the food. Maybe you are a very stressed person, and this is impacting your ability to digest food properly. Or maybe you are just very sedentary, and a short post-meal 10-minute walk around the block will solve your digestive issues. Either way, if you have digestive issues, you need to have a closer look at what you eat and how you live, because it's not bloating, gas, diarrhea is not normal at all. There's something you need to change, and I hope I could show you that this protein absorption myth is really a myth, and then you can eat and absorb more than 25 grams of protein in whatever the source, and that there is even a good enough reason to maybe eat a little bit more. I will also link to a blog article I wrote, which goes into a little bit more detail. We'll also link to a few different sources, so you can get a little bit deeper into the science if you want to. I hope you liked this video and took something away from it. It would be really cool if you could like it and share it with someone who thinks this myth is true, so they might change their mind. And if you like to see more of these videos, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more. Until next time, see you!